News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is the unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com. The one thing that we do, besides the post-game podcast, where we don't let you see us. So that's our tagline now. You can't see us. The whole gang is here. Even Bob is going to be rejoining the podcast today. But we're going to start out with George on the mic because a lot of big news coming out. And by the way, I want to thank everybody who has been listening to the podcast, who took advantage for the first time of becoming a Sooner Scoop subscriber with our silly season promo. We sold more of those than anyone else in the On3 network, so we thank you guys for checking us out, and we hope you'll stick around after your dollar runs out and find us worthy because, you know, we do a lot of good stuff around here. Like yesterday, breaking the news that OU will be hiring Seth Littrell and John Finley, and I'm kind of like back and forth. Should I say John Finley and Seth Littrell? Seth Littrell, like who is the big dog? Who's the alpha? Who's the beta? It's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out, how they work together.
I think that they should do a bench contest, and then whoever, because I assume that both of them
has longer arms, though.
still work out, and I would imagine that Seth Littrell definitely still benches.
Seth Littrell, he looks like he is a lead actor in a 70s television drama.
He is some coach's shorts away from like being right
shorts.
back into like the short coach's shorts
that have the strings on them.
He is just a couple of those. I got to turn these headphones up.
You are so deaf.
I know, it's really scary.
I don't know how I work with him.
What do you mean?
Here we go, all over again.
What do you mean? He is a couple of those like depictions away from being right back into what's the
like BJ and the Bear or something?
No, he kind of reminds me of like one of the coaches from like the high school movie.
Oh yeah,
not Varsity Blues.
Varsity Blues.
No. Mm-hmm. God, it's a great movie. We've
Friday
talked
Night Lights.
Dazed and Confused. Dazed and Confused. Like one of those coaches.
He does look like he would.
Like he's kind of like one of those badass coaches, but I don't know.
Yelling at his
Neither
kids.
here nor there.
Trying to get his kids to sign an honor agreement or whatever.
Honor agreement for the summer, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, he could pull that off. He looks to me like, you know, when you see, and I probably get these a lot because of
he looks like Muskogee. I think that's the way to describe him. He just looks like
that's
Muskogee.
Not bad. And as Eddie said, with the dip in, that's 100%. That's Muskogee. That's the G all the way.
If Muskogee had a Marlboro man, it would be Seth Littrell.
That'd be badass.
He looks like the picture that you see, like the before and after of like a graphic on a dad bod type thing. Like, try this weight killer and this is what you'll look like. I mean, that's what he looks like because he's got the jawline. I mean, he's not a dude you'd want to mess with, no doubt about it.
I could see him being a shirt off to mow the lawn type.
Yeah. On a riding lawnmower though.
Maybe I'll ask him. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
You know, he and Dusty
definitely
had
a beer in hand.
He and Dusty had matching nipple rings back in the day.
That's badass.
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder why Brent didn't hire him the first time around.
I know.
No, I'm kidding. It's going to be...
Well, he was a head coach at the time.
He had a job,
True.
yeah.
True.
He had a job.
That's a fact.
So, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. It was fun yesterday. George, great job. Eddie
led the way.
I mean, George has been trying to give Eddie his due, his flowers on this thing.
The team. That's
I tried to give him the byline on the story.
Yeah.
I mean,
people probably would have thought that it was a fake.
They would have thought that it was AI.
It was a fake. Yeah.
Is Sooner Scoop using AI now?
Sports Illustrated.
I don't know how to feel about that because it's like I get that they have like a writers union that steps up, but it's just like nobody wins in that situation.
Can I be completely honest? Nobody reads Sports Illustrated anymore. I really don't care.
Well, and I don't know who really does work for Sports Illustrated and who doesn't work for Sports Illustrated.
I mean, from a national level, I don't know. I'd rather talk Oklahoma offense coordinators.
So anyway, well, I'm happy to do that. So we were trying to give you credit for, all the work that you put into it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It was a team effort yesterday. It was fun being up here at the office and trying to break the story. And, I think that we nailed it. It's a rather fascinating move that I think has received quite a bit of attention from outside of the Oklahoma Twitter world. Or inside the Oklahoma Twitter world, outside of the program.
What I found kind of fascinating is just now that, I pay so much attention to YouTube and we're building the YouTube empire and all that stuff, it's fascinating how quickly people get YouTube videos out on stuff. Just like random dudes. There's all kind, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but there's so many YouTube channels out there that have OU content. And that's a big part of why I wanted to develop our stuff, because I knew that we could do it in a really good way that would kind of stand above some of the noise. But it was unrelenting, the amount of, it's the algorithm, I guess, but just the amount of people that were already discussing that. And by the way, this is such a stupid journalist thing to gripe about, but attribution, you want to get credit when you break something, and YouTube, there's none of that. And really in the real world of journalism, there's none of that anymore. People are doing that less and less. And it's one of those things, though, I'm proud of what we're doing. I'm proud of having George on board, proud of what Eddie's started to become as a news gatherer and a guy that brings a lot of scoop into the fold. So I just wanted to stop real quick and say thank you guys, and great job yesterday.
I tried to tell Tiffany that Eddie had a big role, and Tiffany was not sure she believed me. She thought I might be f***ing with her.
Eddie for everybody out there, Eddie had the story on Sunday, and he had it nailed down what was going to happen on Sunday. Carrie and I just came in yesterday and confirmed it, maybe extended it a little bit. But
made some boops, and all of a sudden we ran into, not only the coaching news, but the departures of, the guys that are going to leave to go with Jeff Levy.
Staff, and the staff was going to stay intact.
And the staff that was going to stay intact, which I think was a big question mark on top of, outside of the coordinator stuff, was probably the biggest story for me yesterday, is that we were able to basically confirm with those close to him that Jackson Arnold not only is signed up to be coming back next year. I think he looks at this as, this is his team. This is his program in a way. He's going to be the face of what is Oklahoma offensively over the next couple of years as they make the transition into the SEC.
Yeah, I talked to some people close to him, and it sounds like he had zero concern about the direction of this thing. So I think it's safe to say that guy his head is on straight. And the thing that was told to me is, in high school, I guess he had several different head coaches, several different offensive coordinators. This is nothing new to him. He committed to Oklahoma to play for Brent Venables and be the quarterback at this university.
And Josh, that kind of leads into the conversation about, kind of the buzzword with the hire and continuity and how important it was to, as much as we bitched and complained about the offense, they were really good statistically a year ago. They're going to finish in the top 8 in scoring offense. They're going to finish in the top 8 of total offense. And, in a way, Seth Littrell and John Finley are inheriting a group that should be really, really talented in 2024.
Oh, there's no question. This is a group that has real potential. You look at it, and guys, I think the only question mark you have is the offensive line. And even within that, you've got Troy Everett, who you feel like, okay, you kind of know that whatever he is, he could be a solid player for Oklahoma. And then you might have a couple of really high-end guys in Jacob Sexton and Caden Green. So I think you start off knowing you're in a pretty good place, and then you've got to fill in some other spots. They could really use another Walter Rouse kind of portal guy to really lend some credibility. But and maybe some time for some of the young guys to come along. But yeah, that offense should be very good if Seth Littrell and John Finley are, what you expect them to be. And I know we'll get into some of it, but I did want to say, for a lot of the people that are out there that are kind of down on the hire, and I admit I have my questions. I'm not as gung ho as some, but what is interesting, if you look at Seth Littrell's offenses from the year before he got there and over the time that he's been anywhere he's been, the growth is beyond question. And I'm not talking about total offense or something that you can shoot down based on, opponents or whatever. But I'm talking about SP plus, FEI, like real analytical looks at his offenses. He gets better. I mean, before he got there at North Carolina, the best example I can come up with, they were 43rd in the country in offense the year before he arrived. His first year, they jumped to 30, and by the second year, they were number 8 in the country in offense. I believe that was SP plus. So, I mean, Bill Connolly, a guy that I've got a lot of respect for, the way he looks at data and kind of accumulates information, I think that's pretty interesting. And I think that's one of the things that if you're going to try to find confidence in the hire that maybe isn't as flashy and sexy as everybody had hoped, I think that's something where you can see these guys are growing and getting better under his watch.
And look, I don't know if it was really through our channels or just on radio, but I said this in the office, like, if you're Oklahoma, you can go out there and get anybody that you want for the most part. I mean, every offensive coordinator that's been at Oklahoma since Bob Stoops arrived, even one that got fired, Josh Heupel, has gotten a head coaching job. This is where you come, if you're an offensive coordinator, to earn yourself a head coaching job in college football. It's one of the few places you can say that. You can recruit really good talent. You can have success, and you can move on to a head coaching job. You can't say that about other blue blood schools, or you can't say that you have a defensive coordinator, a head coach that allows you to run the type of offense that you want. That's the thing about Oklahoma. And I think what Brent will carry on. There's never an offensive coordinator is never. Well, you could argue Josh Heupel was a little bit, but for the most part, an offensive coordinator has been able to come in here and run his system exactly the way that he wants to run it without interference from the head coach. That was the way with Lincoln Riley. That was the way with Kevin Wilson. That was the way with Mike Leach. And I think Brent carries on that tradition, and it'll be interesting to see exactly how many elements of the air raid versus how many elements of the Brile system are in this offense when we see it next year. And I said, you can go get anybody you want. Why would you elevate somebody that hasn't been a coordinator before? But after talking to people yesterday, and George did the same, I reached out to one coach, and I said, who has coached with Bill Bedenbaugh and Seth Littrell before. I said, what do you think about Seth as an offensive mind? And his response was, Bill Bedenbaugh and Seth Littrell together are going to be fantastic. And that's kind of what their working relationship goes back a ways. They were together at Arizona, obviously crossed over a little at Tech.
I think they might be brother-in-laws, by the way.
I seem to think that one of them set the other up with their wife or something like that.
I think Bill and Seth's wives are sisters.
Not brother.
Really?
I think so.
Say that again.
I think that Bill's wife and Seth's wife are sisters.
Interesting.
Okay.
That might be wrong.
Yeah.
That is what I was told yesterday by someone.
It was posted on the board then. This was news to me that Seth had introduced Bill when they worked in Lubbock to who
that
Bill's
definitely
wife
happened.
Is.
I don't. They might be related.
Okay.
Text right now
Very cool. I think that is great.
Yeah. So
well, I know Bill's wife is from Tahlequah, so that would make some sense if Seth was married to somebody. I don't know anything about his wife, but there would be some connection there that would make some sense.
Very good. Just in terms of the co-coordinator status, should we get into that? Because that's been a point of contention for a lot of people out there.
I know that you guys believe that Seth Littrell will be the play caller.
Correct, as well as the quarterback's coach.
Yes, and to me that is whoever is the play caller. Look, they're both going to have input on game plans and developing game plans and how to attack defenses and what to install that week, what not to install. But on game days, the play caller is the guy that all the fans look at and say, okay, that's the offensive coordinator. Even though coordinating is more than play calling, Seth is going to be the guy that people ask to talk to the most in terms of media, and he's going to be the guy that gets the credit or the criticism for how that offense performs on game days.
Correct. And I don't think, and maybe you guys disagree, but there's some people out there that are complaining about the title of co-offensive coordinators.
Which has been happening in the world of college football for the longest of time.
Clemson won both their national titles with co-offensive coordinators. Alabama in the last 5 years has had co-offensive coordinators. Georgia, Oregon currently has co-offensive coordinators.
But everybody thought, like Clemson, they thought of Tony Elliott when you said...
Yes, no, I agree. But like you're just being stupid.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, everybody knows it's Seth Littrell calling the plays.
Well, let's
just pull down the curtain. It's a way to get somebody more money.
Right.
And to keep him.
But you go back, Mike Leach was his own coordinator, own play caller, own quarterbacks coach. But then Mark Mangino, he was an offense coordinator for, was he 2 years? I'm trying to think. But Chuck was there. So, Chuck was kind of co. And then it was co between Chuck and Kevin. And then it was co between Kevin and Kevin. And then Kevin Sumlin got a job, and it was just Kevin. And then Wilson. It was just Heupel.
Yeah.
So, co-coordinators, we figured this out the other day. Like, co-coordinators have played in three national championships for Oklahoma.
I think it's 2.
Guys,
no, 3.
Brent Venables won his first national title as a co-coordinator.
Right.
Yeah.
With Mike.
On defense,
it was defensive, but it's the same idea.
Yeah, LSU, they would have had co-coordinators. USC, they would have had but not in 08, I guess.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think easiest said is what the conversation is everybody looks at the tight end unit. We've talked about how poor they were this year, and they go, why did Joe John Finley get a raise? Why is he getting a better title when his group sucked? That's the general thought.
And I understand that, but I think the general sentiment within the building is they think Joe John is a rising star in the coaching ranks.
I would say that Brent Venables thinks very, very highly of Joe John Finley. And not only that, I think that we should wrap this in as well, and it's something that we reported on last night on the YouTube show in the instant reaction. I don't think it's crazy to say that two of the strongest supporters within the program of elevating Seth Littrell and getting Joe John the co-offensive title were Bill Beanabo and DeMarco Murray.
Yes. Yeah. And by the way...
And they're the ones that have to work with him every day.
Don't get your football cliches confused. It's if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. Stop saying if you have 2 offensive coordinators, you have no offensive coordinators.
That's as Facebook comment as it gets. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I have to monitor. Like right now, my phone just blowing up with Facebook comments because I'm forced to see every Facebook comment that comes across. Anyway, there was something about co-OC that just popped up on the stupid Facebook page.
Did we mention LSU? Joe Burrow may be the greatest offense ever.
But he had that old guy.
Was a co-OC. Yeah, it was two different guys.
His daughter-in-law died in the plane crash?
Son-in-law, I believe. I believe it was his daughter's husband the night before the Peach Bowl, right? Well, when we were out in Atlanta.
Right, yeah.
It's crazy.
But he was the offensive coordinator, and then Brady was the co-coordinator. But everybody was like, oh, Brady's the one doing this. So
Steve Ensminger,
yeah.
I believe was his name, along with Joe Brady, as you said.
You know what? What this really means, Eddie, is that you've got to have a good vision for what your offense is going to be, regardless if you have 1 coach or 2 coaches. Kind of like you have great vision.
That's right. And it was thanks to the people of Enjoy Vision, which is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City, and it's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What they're doing, the fine people of Enjoy, they want the unofficial 40 listener to have perfect vision as well. All you have to do, it's $400 off LASIK as well, BT dub. Go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter NJOY with me.com and use promo code U40. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
All right.
I almost forgot. I didn't know where my cheat sheet was. I kind of freaked out for a second.
But then you turned around with your excellent vision and you found it.
That's right. Well, I just memorized it too. I didn't even use it that time.
So
even though it sounded like I was reading.
So, and then the other thing you guys mentioned a little bit earlier. It's pretty clear. There's been 1 decommitment. The Ezenkame kid, the wide receiver so far. George, I know you mentioned that you had checked in with some people close to Jackson Arnold. And you'd even mentioned, this is nothing new to Jackson Arnold, switching coordinators.
Yeah, no, I think, and Josh might know this better than I do, but I think it was maybe 3 different offensive coordinators, 2 different head coaches at Geyer. I might have that reversed. I can't remember, but that was what somebody told me. I also checked in with people close to Kevin Sperry. I know that's been brought up. Sounds like he's very comfortable with Seth Littrell as well. And we've mentioned it several times. Seth Littrell was very active at the summer camps working with the quarterbacks, and he's been in the quarterback room this season most of the year as an analyst working with those guys. So I think that him taking over the quarterbacks, I know he's never coached quarterbacks before, but it's not like Seth Littrell's going to be out there trying to tell Jackson Arnold how to throw the football. He's going to be teaching him schemes and how to read a defense, what he wants to do offensively. So I don't think him never having coached quarterbacks before is that big of an issue.
I have to think with the Sperrys, it was more like the family just like, what the hell? Like,
yes, I think there was some of that.
I mean, just they moved to Oklahoma.
You know,
then
I would say
within a year the coach leaves.
Yeah, and I get that. I totally do.
But you put yourself in that position, yeah.
At a position like Oklahoma and with somebody like a Jeff Lebby, I would imagine you got to have a little bit of, I don't know, sense of reality that this is a possibility. Like this definitely was a possibility. I think that a lot of us would have said, 2 weeks ago, maybe even a week ago, that for something like this to happen, I thought it would be maybe next year. But for somebody that was a junior in high school this year, you had to realize that there was a chance that Jeff Lebby wouldn't be around at Oklahoma.
A likelihood.
100%, yeah.
Sure.
I mean you just have to realize if you are going to play for one of the best offensive coaches in football or someone that's considered that, and he's not the head coach, there's a chance that he won't be there by the time your playing days are done.
And talking to some of the quarterbacks, like I get the impression they're fairly pleased with this. I know most of them had said, Zerbrug had told me, Hawkins had told me. Sperry's really the only one that's left it a little open-ended. But again, kid moved to Oklahoma. Like he might look around, it wouldn't shock me, but it still feels like he's got a real relationship with Brent Venables, and I don't know. Like I just struggle to think that. And again, if Oklahoma goes out and does it offensively and Jackson Arnold's all that we think he can be, then why wouldn't Kevin Sperry buy into, be in the future of that setup? Because, again, he still has to buy in a little bit because say Seth Littrell goes and lights up the world. He's got head coaching experience, lit it up for Oklahoma.
Sure.
Who's to say that wouldn't be a new hire being made this time next year?
Which would be, I guess, go against the grain of the thought of the continuity stuff and avoiding. My belief is some of the continuity stuff is you don't want to be back in this position next year where, and maybe they would just elevate Jojon. I'm thinking this out as I talk, but you don't want to be back in this position and having to force Jackson to learn a third different offense. And not to say that, it's going to be different in year 2 for him than it is this past season, but you just don't want to be back in this position where you're having to learn another offense as you go into the second year in the SEC.
And you know what, guys? I think the one thing that we talked a lot about, or I was talking earlier about, I was hesitant about this, and after talking to people, and I know you guys probably don't want to say the word continuity again because you said that a million times last night on the YouTube show, but that is a big part of it, and that's why Jackson Arnold is okay with this. That's why he's behind these guys being named co-coordinators. But I do think there is one thing that you'll see a market improvement in next year because of this move, Josh, and that's the run game. I think you're going to have Bill Bedenbaugh working closely with Seth Littrell, implementing things he wants to do, things he knows his guys can do, whether that is going to more of a zone, less of a gap, whatever. They're going to be better in the run. I believe 100% they're going to be better in the run game next year.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. I mean, again, and I keep going back to it, and it's a weird data point because you're going so far back in history. But I mean, his last North Carolina offense was a top 20 rushing offense in college football. Like this isn't a spread guy that won't run the ball. I mean, we all know, and everybody that's listening knows, Seth Littrell's a fullback. Like those guys don't get that out of their system. They have a respect for what that means and what that can entail. And I think it's very interesting to watch how he marries a lot of the ideas that Jackson Arnold's familiar with, and that, a lot of those schemes of the RPO stuff that Jeff Lebby, we all know, favors, and marries that with some of the spread concepts that Seth Littrell comes out of. I mean, being part of that Mike Leach tree. So I think that's going to be really interesting. Could create some very unique stuff. At the same time, I think Seth Littrell has a lot of faith in Bill Bedenbaugh to say, what do you need to do? What do we need to do for this run game to be what it needs to be? And I think we all saw it. And I think a lot of Lebby. I think there is a lot of good stuff he brought to the program. If there was one of the things I would say was always my biggest concern was just trying to do something that clearly didn't work as well as another option that you had.
Don't say jet sweep. Don't say jet sweep. Don't say jet sweep. No, I think that was always the thing that was intriguing about the Briles system is that there was more of an emphasis placed on the run game than in the air raid. So anybody that's out there like, oh well, now because Seth was a fullback, now they're going to recruit fullbacks again. No, he's still an air raid coordinator. I mean, that's not going. You're not going to Who was it? I think it was Kevin Wilson that did the diamond formation first.
Yeah, that seems right. Because that was, or
I know Oklahoma State calls them
Finch,
cowboy backs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you could see some H-back types. Like I could see a role for that, but a pure I formation fullback, that's not happening.
No, he's an air raid guy. I mean, that's he's been with Larry Fedora and other people, so he's picked up some things here and there. But yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is run game based out of primarily passing sets, and whether that's getting back to GT power or whatever. I just really feel like you're going to see a lot better stuff. Okay, so coordinators are named. Or hopefully maybe that'll come out today, maybe it'll be tomorrow. We thought it'd be 24, 48 hours when we reported it last night that it would come out. And let's face it, the things that are, there's nothing holding it up. They're just working out the details of contracts and things like that.
Yeah, and I would say too that I would expect raises for just about everybody on the offensive side of the ball for sure. Mm-hmm. I think. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that money is going to come from like the 1.9 and how that they were paying to Jeff Lebby. I don't know how that's going to be divvied out amongst the staff, but I think that you will see raises for somebody like an Emmett Jones, or Bill Bedenbaugh, or DeMarco, those types of guys. And if nothing else, I think it's probably a little bit of a tip in the cap to, thanks for staying around type of deal.
Well, and go ahead, Josh.
I know. I was going to ask, do we have any expectation of what Littrell is going to look like? I mean, I can't imagine he's going to push to Lebby's number, but do we have any kind of gut feel?
I kind of feel like Joe John will end up around 900 or something like that
for the first
year. And so if you were going to say that Lebby was making 1.9, I bet he makes around $1 million.
Yeah.
That's a complete guess on my part. I have no idea how they divvy that up.
Yeah, I know Joe John's currently making $520,000. I would suspect that will get bumped to around 900.
Yeah,
and Littrell would probably.
Fair.
And if Littrell's the play caller, he'll probably make a little bit more.
I think that's fair.
Like 1.2 or something like that.
Yeah,
I would say probably no more than like 1.3.
It's Joe C.
I have no idea.
That sounds about right. Because if nothing else, you want to have that reputation of we're going to pay our coordinators. Like, you don't want it to be like, oh, we got a great deal here, and then have to fend people off or have a reputation of being cheap. That was something that I think really hurt Notre Dame last year, is their reputation of not being willing to pay up for the guys they need.
It will be interesting too, and I don't think that any further quote unquote staff changes will happen until after the season, but we'll see if everybody comes back on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm not saying that, I'm not throwing it out there that anything crazy is going to happen, but I think there is a reality that, and we've talked about it here on the Unofficial 40, that Ted Roof doesn't have a contract next year. And I don't know if that's going to be a situation where that comes back up for a Board of Regents meeting, and all of a sudden he gets another 1-year deal or another 2-year deal.
I think it was more that, Ted Roof wanted it that way, that he wanted to see if he still wanted to be in coaching.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that decision isn't made until a little closer to the bowl game or after.
I think it would be way after the bowl game. Not way after, but
it maybe be like a day or two because his contract is up January 1st.
Okay.
And if they play in the Alamo Bowl, that's December 28th. So
right.
He would have to make a decision relatively quickly. But, I mean, I think what I'm saying is I don't know if we'd get an announcement or some sort of decision publicly until after the bowl game.
And I guess I would say that, outside of Ted Roof, I think everybody will be, quote-unquote, and even Ted, if he wanted to come back, I think everybody would be invited back. I don't think that they're, running off any coaches.
Here's my question, Josh. And this, we talk about people, about the co-coordinator thing on Facebook, comments and stuff like that. And we always kind of have something similar on the Crimson Corner, on our message boards, where people get obsessed with a certain topic and just run it into the ground. Ted Roof has kind of become that. And everybody's like, well, get him out of there and get this guy in there. But my question to you, Josh, is don't you think what's more likely is that Roof might stay around another year until maybe Brent feels like someone is ready to take over a true defensive coordinator role, and would that guy most likely be Brandon Hall?
That's the one. The other guy that is absolutely worthy of mention that you wonder a little bit about is the Zach Alley guy that worked with Brent at Clemson, was at UL Monroe for I think 2 years, and has now been at Jacksonville State since 2022 as their DC. So I think that is that's an interesting possibility. He's a linebackers coach. It makes a lot of sense. Guys, the Roof stuff, and you're right, Kerry, we all know the board and fan base, not just OU, any fan base, they find a scapegoat, and he is responsible for any and all problems, and that's the way that goes. And now that Jeff Lebby's gone, there's got to be somebody new. We got to have a new blame. So, and I think we all know. I've been pretty open about my doubts about the usefulness of that hire and what that means and that kind of thing. And I know Brent had a plan for it and all those sort of things. But, guys, look at the last month of that team. The defense did not play well. And I know it's Brent Venables' defense, but Brent's not going to fire himself. So what's the next step? It feels very obvious to me. And especially when the biggest problem is linebacker, where Oklahoma seems to have 3 coaches, Brent Venables, Ted Roof, and James Skalski, all working with those guys. And the linebackers were easily the worst unit on the field over the last month.
I don't look at it as a coaching thing at all. I look at it as that whole defense and that linebacker core was so beat up. I mean, you start with Danny Stutzman. He had a stinger every other series. I mean, he's got to have – I would imagine he's in line for some cleanup surgery in the offseason.
Well, not to mention, the guy was basically playing on one leg post-Kansas.
Yeah. I mean, that was a bad sprained ankle. And he was out there. He probably, anybody else, they probably would have taken him a month to get back. But he knew he didn't have a month. He tried to come back for the Bedlam game, just couldn't go. And it didn't mean that he was better the final 2 games. He was just playing.
Oh, there was a tackle that he made over on the west sideline in the TCU game last Friday. And he got up, and I immediately thought, shit, he's hurt again. He could barely walk.
Well, and I think Kip Lewis is more of a product of just a young guy. All of a sudden he's playing every snap in a college football, Division I college football, Power 5 conference. And I think that took a toll on him. And I think he probably just now you've got to study. You got to know every play that's getting ready, every formation. His head was swimming probably a little bit.
Okay. And I'm not saying you're wrong. What about Jaron Kanek?
He played really well when he got pissed off when he got replaced as a starter. But, let's not pretend like Jaron Kanek didn't have issues all year.
No, it's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah.
And so
he needs to be better. He did not. Yeah, there was not a whole lot of growth there.
But you could say the same thing about Danny Stutzman's year last year.
Sure. But at the end of last year, he was starting to play pretty good. He was starting to show up, especially in the game in Lubbock and especially the game in the Cheez Bowl.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, until he just got exhausted late against Florida
And
State.
how much of that do you weigh on him literally still learning the position.
A lot, I think. But I'm just not worried about linebacker. I think they're really good there. Yeah. And if they can get all 4 of those guys to come back, just look at the leap Danny made from year 1 to year 2 under Brent, and just think of what those guys like Kip and Kobe and Jaron can do after getting as much playing time as they did this year. And the one that I'm really excited about is Kobe. I think Kobe McKenzie is going to be a stud. And it's same with Kip and Jaron. I mean, I think they're all really good. And
yeah,
I mean, I just think that position has a really bright future.
A lot of that, and a lot of
better quality depth than anywhere else on the roster.
Sure, and I think that a lot of kind of what Oklahoma could be in 2024 defensively is contingent upon not just recruiting, but recruiting the players that are on the roster right now to return, whether it be a Billy Bowman, Danny Stutzman, DJ Terry. There's a number of these guys that have decisions that they have to make over the next month and a half.
Yeah, I'm more worried about cornerback, I'd say, than I am linebacker.
I think that's one spot to circle in the portal.
Cornerback?
I think they'll go after somebody because obviously I think they like their young talent. When you look at, Gentry's been great, but he's so injury prone that you can't just bank on him being available for all 12 games next year. And then you like Josiah Wagner and Makari Vickers, but they're young. If you can go out and get a really experienced corner, I think it'd make you feel a lot better there.
And I think there's truth in that, but I mean, I don't know how you can talk about the linebackers being banged up and that being a reason when I didn't think cornerback play was all that bad, and they were beat to hell for a good portion of the year. I mean, everybody was I think of the guys you would put in that room, the only guys that didn't miss at least a game were Dolby and Woody Washington.
And we'll see
Dolby, I mean, is a cheetah.
Yeah, we'll see. And speaking of the cheetah, we'll see what happens with Justin Harrington. Is he going to apply for the medical red shirt to come back? I know that he walked in the senior day festivities last week, but Brent has talked about it before.
On social media, I got to think he's definitely applying. And
it's going to be really interesting too to see what happens with Dasan McCullough, because he, to me, kind of had, in terms of the hype that
he fell off.
Yeah, he didn't have, and it ended up being Kendall Dolby and it was somewhat because of matchups. And I mean, Dasan was just a liability in coverage flat out, and so they had to play Kendall Dolby out there. And so I wonder what they end up doing with Dasan, and maybe he grows and becomes a better player next year. But I wonder if he has a different role, if he maybe moves position. I don't know where he'd move to, but I don't know. He struggled at the end of the year.
Speaking of, and it's fast and furious, and it's we've had so much going on, it's hard for us to even keep up at times. But Josh, anything in the portal that strikes you as either, I know OU's going to be interested here, or this is a guy they really need to look at?
I know George and I have had some conversations. One of the guys that popped up actually this morning that I think is really interesting is a guy named Nate Clifton at Vanderbilt. He had about 7.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks in the SEC this year. So some production. Really, it's a 1-year deal. He hasn't had a lot outside of this year, but I think that could be an interesting fit because we know OU needs bodies up along the defensive line probably more than anywhere on the roster, with all they're going to lose to graduation, possibly the portal, whatever it may be. So, and he goes about 6'4", 270, so he's kind of a fit as one of their, he could play in a 4-man front. If they want to go odd, he could do that as well. I can't say that I've watched a lot of tape. I know he's been productive. Deion Burks, a wide receiver from Purdue that's been really productive. I've gotten the impression that OU has some real interest there. And I guess the one that I think a lot of people will remember is Amari Abor, the former Duncanville big-time recruit. We talked about him on the podcast for months and months and months, and is, a guy that really was high on Oklahoma at various points. Now, that was largely the previous staff. He didn't really have the same relationship with Venables and this crew, but I know he has some affinity for Oklahoma. So if OU wanted to get involved there, they probably could. He hasn't played much at Ohio State. I thought he was a big project coming out of Duncanville, tremendously talented. But when I would watch Duncanville, he'd flash, and then you wouldn't notice him for a while. Like, it wasn't the consistency, the productivity that you want to see. So he's another interesting one. But, yeah, I mean, I will say the early returns look like there are going to be some guys that can help Oklahoma if they want to find them and go chase them down. And I know the big guy from Harvard is also really interesting.
Thor?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you're not recruiting a guy that was included on Bruce Feldman's freak list and his name's Thor, everybody should be fired.
Can we go ahead and guarantee if he was to come in, he could have some sort of NIL deal? Can we just start working with Thor on that immediately?
That'd be awesome. Which, by the way,
Jeff Levy's gone. They don't have an NIL program anymore.
OU has talked to him. So,
what, yeah. Eddie? Why have you been reporting that for just for 2 days? The NIL program's dead now that Jeff Levy's gone.
Talk about something that I got myself into that I was just like, now, how did this happen?
I will say there probably is a valid point that it's not something we've brought up a lot.
Sure.
But it's known. Like, it's not like it was some big secret or something that he really, glad-handed a lot of the right people.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. He played a very critical role in the development of that thing, and it's off and running now.
What'd you get in trouble for? I'm just curious.
On the board, just basically,
I missed this.
That people were saying that it was news to them that Levy was so heavily involved in OU's NIL program. And I said, we had talked about it. And then it was like, no, you never did. And we clearly did not communicate that well. That's RB.
Yeah. I don't think that's on them. Like, I get it. Like, I get that the question's being asked. But at the same time, you're like, we wouldn't say that if there wasn't there's no reason for us to say it at this point if it wasn't factual.
And then I turned to the the Peyton Bowen stuff and how I think kind of amazed that we were when everything went down back in December, and everybody remembers how that went down. And I think that when we talked about how unusual it was for an offensive coach to be involved, and it wasn't just a change of heart type of deal. I don't know. It got made into much.
Well, and here's
it got
the
made
thing.
into a bigger deal than it really
as
was.
a coach, you can't be involved in arranging NIL deals, but you can be active in knowing what you have available and who works with athletes,
facilitating opportunity that is out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if facilitate is the right way to put it, but just caring really about the NIL, because you have some coaches
embracing
I don't like Mike Gundy's I don't talk to players about NIL. That's illegal. It's like, no, it's really not. You can pretty much do anything you want now. You just can't pay him the money yourself, and you can't tell a business, hey, give this guy so much money. Like, you can be active in terms of, just knowing what is out there for kids and what you have available as a university.
No doubt. Back to the Thor stuff. You did say, though, you talked to him.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a visit in the near future.
I love a good transfer visit that gets blown out of proportion. Like these kids have never gone on visits before when they enter the transfer portal.
He hasn't been offered yet, though. I know he's been offered by quite a few Power 5 schools, but I don't think OU has not offered him yet.
I think the last real big visit I can think that just got blown up was probably Jalen Hurts.
I remember that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, last year,
in geology class,
or 2 years ago, the fun was had with McCade Matauer when he was at the ranch, and everybody said it was Jackson Dart.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Oh God, I forgot about that one. That was amazing.
Mistaked him for Jackson
because
Dart.
he has long hair and he was sitting at the ranch. Yeah,
and he's 100 pounds heavier.
Well, come on.
I mean, he's tall. They're both tall.
Yeah.
I would say, though, Doriel has to be the one that's like the highlight, right? That was the one everybody went into full.
That was the OG stalking in the bushes. I mean, that was that was the beginning of truly the end when it came to like transfers and just all that kind of stuff, just in terms of how we covered it.
There have been a few incidents in my life where like I'm driving to the radio station and I literally have to turn around and I'm not doing the show today. DGB was probably the second time that happened to me.
Are you guys surprised at all there's not been more OU guys in the portal yet?
I don't think surprised. I think that this is something that because they're off, I don't, and again, just another guess, I wonder if the coaches just basically said, take the week off. If you want to enter the transfer portal, we'll have those conversations at the end of the week.
Well, we know if we're
And I
coaching.
actually-
I'm sure some of them. Too,
I know
on the
that they've
offensive-
had a couple conversations with people. Like
Yeah.
I think that there are some position groups that you can expect guys to enter the transfer portal. I put up on the board that I would expect some movement in the tight end unit. I would expect maybe some movement in the wide receiver unit. I know there was a name that we had heard about, Josh. And then, there's going to be 2, 3, 4 guys that you go, oh, okay. Didn't know that.
What you wonder is like everybody that, we always got these questions about anytime a player wasn't playing enough that was highly recruited, like, well, he's just going to enter the portal. And we're like, just hold off on that. The kid understands the plan. He's happy. And we said that all the time about Javonte Barnes, but I wonder if it just hasn't gone so sideways that maybe he doesn't take a look around.
He is kind of in that tier of guys that if you were to see his name enter the transfer portal, you go, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I wouldn't blame him either because you look
but
at.
we also don't know what actually happened this year and why he wasn't the guy that
I'm
everybody
saying
thought he was.
Just from a number standpoint, I wouldn't blame him because you look at it. Seems like it's going to be Sawchuk's, show going forward. Tawi Walker can come back. You've got Caleb Hicks and Dalen Smothers. I'm assuming they'll be back, and then you bring in Taylor Tatum. I mean, it just the numbers. You would think Barnes might be the odd man left out.
Well, yeah, I think that for that. With that said, Tawi Walker, if he entered the portal, I wouldn't be shocked.
It wouldn't shock me either. Yep.
And a large part of that is due to the suspension and everything that went down pertaining to that.
He did win the walk-on award.
Yeah, the Derek Shepard Award.
Yeah.
By the way, when does the Burlsworth get decided?
I think
it's
want
at
to
the
say
award show.
They have it at, well, no, the
It's in
Burlsworth
Little Rock.
has its own award thing in Little Rock, and
Right.
it's usually like, I want to say it's next
But
week.
it's usually
It's the week of the Heisman.
they
so it's
don't
next
have
week.
all 3 of them come though. They usually name a winner and then they have the dinner for it.
Oh, they don't have all 3 of the guys out there?
I don't think so.
I thought that they did. And the only reason I say
might
that
have
is because I
changed
remember
since
Baker went
won
out
it.
there a couple
Yeah.
times.
It might have changed since Baker won it.
But they usually have that at like the Fayetteville Touchdown Club or something. Whoever sponsors it through Brandon Burlsworth, they usually have like a luncheon, and it's on
And
a
the reason
Monday
we're
or a
talking about is
Tuesday.
because Drake Stoops is one
Yeah,
of the
sure.
finalists.
And I think he probably has a pretty good chance of winning it. I don't even know who the other
I don't
finalists
either.
are.
I was going
The
to say
finalists.
I voted for him.
It's hard to say he's the
As a
favorite,
former
but you don't
walk-on,
know.
I voted for Drake.
Finalists will be honored, and the winner of the 2023 Burlsworth Trophy will be announced on December 4th at 7 p.m. Central Time at Crystal Bridges Museum in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Monday afternoon.
So
Monday afternoon.
Same day as
we
the
should
formal
go. We should get a free lunch out of it. Those luncheons. There's nothing better. I was talking about this morning.
George
actually,
loves Little Rock too.
There's nothing better than
in
a
Bentonville.
good.
Oh,
Bentonville touchdown.
I would
Club,
not go to
excuse me.
Little Rock ever again.
There's nothing better than a good lunch. A free just plate of usually a pretty good
airline
meal.
chicken?
Yeah, maybe something, a little pasta, maybe a little salad,
Maybe some shrimp.
possibly. Would have been a great segue, George.
would have been.
It must not be that time.
It's Dead Soxy time. That's what time it is. Deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY.com. Go check them out. Use that promo code SCOOP for 25% off your entire order. They've sad to say that the cyber deals have gone behind, and just like the silly season, but they're still there for you. And I do know that they've been advertising their laundry bags, which are fantastic if you got the no-shows, because those little rascals will go all over the place on you.
And if you're going to the Burlsworth convention or luncheon, whatever you want to call it,
You get the Maker Bayfields.
that's right. Or you could wear one of the more professional looks. I know that we are kind of stands of the no-show, but the dress sock, if you're going to wear a suit,
Yeah. And they are just as pillowy light on your feet.
They are
as
very
the
good.
no-shows. So, deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY.com. Go check them out. And as always, stay soxy. Josh tried to leave,
Hey!
but now he's back. And we are welcoming in Bob Prisbillo to the show. You've got some basketball stuff. It's Bob Prisbillo's time to shine because basketball season is here. The Sooners
And
ranked
they
in
look
the
good.
top 25.
25.
They do look really good. And by the way, just welcome back to the pod. Welcome past your whooping cough or whatever you had.
Now Tom Green at 24/7 has it.
It's going around.
That's one more person that can't come in this building. We've sent him home before, saying get the hell out of here. You're gonna make everybody sick. But we're glad to have you back, Bob. And it could be a better time because everybody is interested in this basketball team because they're fun to watch. They're very athletic, and the guys that return, there aren't many of them, but Owe has been fantastic so far. And they've got some new additions that people are going to like watching.
Yeah, I mean, when Porter Moser said this team would be more athletic, it's like, well, okay, we heard that last season, and we know that wasn't true. But if you watch just any bit of that game against Iowa on Thanksgiving and saw Jalen Moore, that's what we're talking about. That's the athletic ability that just hasn't been there since Porter Moser's been in Norman. Just a completely different team, full of experience, full of selflessness right now, which is, I think, has been the key to the 6-0 start, and we'll see if that can continue the rest of the way.
What kind of development have you seen from the guys that returned in Los Uzon? And Otega's been fantastic from what I've seen.
Yeah, with Otega, his shot looks better. It actually looks like you're not scared when he's taking a jump shot. You encourage him.
He had the putback against USC, right?
Yes.
To win it?
Yeah. Yes, he did. And, I mean, he's always had that type of strength. He had that as a freshman, but he's just been able to add so much to his game. And a lot of it just comes from confidence. I remember talking to him last week, just mentally working on my shooting, working on the little things that I know can make me a much better player. And we've seen it throughout with Los, Uzan, him and Javian McCollum still kind of feeling each other out, how they're going to work together. It seems like if one goes off, the other goes silent. So we'll see if they can get them working together at a very high level. But what he's been able to do is distribute the ball. He's not scoring like he did as a true freshman. But I think one of the games last week, he had nine assists. That's going to work. You're going to be able to live with that. If he only has like 6 to 8 points, but he has 9 assists, that's going to be okay.
How's this team in terms of like free throw shooting, turnovers? Are they building an identity there that's positive?
The turnovers have been an issue in a couple games. Free throws are doing really, really well. I think the thing that's going to really tell us about this club, they have scorers, but do they have shooters? Against Iowa, they couldn't make a three. Hawkeyes couldn't make a three either. But then they came back against the Trojans and made like 10 or 11 threes. So that's going to be what separates them because they've got guys who are going to have some open looks. And it's just going to be about knocking at least 35, 40% of them down because they're able to get to the hole time and time again with Javian, with Los, with Otega. We didn't know John Hughley would go 4 for 4 from 3 against USC, and you're not counting on that every single night. But, yeah, if this team can shoot just a little bit, they'll be in contention.
You're not counting on John Hughley to shoot 70% from behind the arc the entire year?
This is amazing. It's like he just takes one a game, makes it. It's like, all right, I'm good. But something was going on Friday where he knew he had to have a much bigger role. And that's, kudos to him, the way he has transitioned to coming off the bench. I think when he didn't start that initial game, Sam Godwin did. People were like, oh, is Hughley in trouble? Is he hurt? Is he being disciplined? Like, no, this is just the way they're working right now, and it is going beautifully with that second wave creating all this energy and production.
And with that said, from what I've seen, Sam Godwin's had a really good year. He's been very consistent, and I think that's something that they haven't had in a 4 or a 5 in a long, long time.
Just making your minutes count. I think that's something Porter has preached a lot, and it's absolutely true. You're not going to have to play 30 to 35 minutes. You play 20 to 25, give us everything you've got, like provided there's no foul trouble, and that's what Godwin does every single time. He did it last year, but there were times he would be in foul trouble or times where he was just overmatched. He worked hard to put on the weight, to be more physical, and through the first 6 games, it has really shown up.
And it'll be interesting, like once, big-time non-conference opponents, bigger games, whether it be a Providence or an Arkansas, and then obviously when you get into Big 12 play, what are you going to get from a consistency level at the 5? Because you do look up, and the Big 12 has some guys, mainly who I'm speaking of, like Hunter Dickinson. That's going to be a tough matchup regardless.
Yeah, and so we'll see if Hughley, Godwin, Luke Northweather at times, if they can keep providing what they've been doing, that would obviously be ideal for what OU is trying to get done here. But the whole thing of Porter feeling he has 8 starters, we've seen it through the first month of the season. How much longer can this keep going on? And if it does, what a great sign that's going to be, because they can mix and match with a lot of those guys into different lineups, whether you want to score, whether you want to play defense. There's different guys among those 8 that can make up your 5 that'll get the job done.
Do you know what's weird to me with college basketball being back is you get so used to the NBA now with the Thunder here. It's like I'm watching a college basketball game and like, what's the purpose of a 1-and-1? Like it's such a like. I've never really seen it in that light before because you always grew up college basketball 1-and-1. It's the dumbest thing ever.
Well, that depends if you're riding out a -7.5 with 2 minutes left, and you got a 35% free throw shooter that's trying to knock down, a pair of free throws to give you a lead.
I think you're looking at the 1-and-1. I think you're also looking at why can't you advance the ball? Timeout?
Out of a timeout. I mean that kills instantly make the game better.
The final 2-3 seconds of a college basketball game. It's like, they gotta throw it the length of the floor and try to make something happen.
I've been in favor of that for a long, long time.
And you know what? If you don't have any timeouts, then you can't take it the length of the floor. The
women do it. Just take it. Don't they? They move the ball up.
And there's so many damn timeouts in college basketball. Like making a coach save one for that would not be a bad thing either. So
I haven't seen the block charge rule impact games that much. But
I haven't either.
I think it's because a lot of people are scared to do what they're not allowed to do now. You're not seeing a lot of people.
They got the job done.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think the important thing is, Josh, there are athletes to watch now at OU basketball. Like athletes where you go, what would he look like on a football field?
That's our goal, to get Josh to watch one OU basketball game this year. Conference game.
Ooh. Oh, okay. I think I watched some of the USC game. I watched at least the last
Feast week doesn't count because I think everybody takes in a little feast week during the holiday season.
Who doesn't watch the Patriot League during feast week?
I don't. Right. I don't really appreciate that assassination on my character, Eddie. That I just watch basketball when I don't feel like it, sir. I have standards, and I don't just go watching college basketball willy nilly.
I know this when Eddie is in the office intently watching Purdue versus Monmouth or something.
No, that's a bad example.
I know he's got a lot of money riding on how much
gambling's illegal.
Purdue Marquette is the final of Maui.
That was a great game.
There you go.
That was a great game. Kansas Purdue was even a great game.
Kansas Tennessee. There were a lot of good games.
Maui was awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so you said Kansas and Tennessee, I think.
Yeah, they played out
those
Maui.
sound like real teams. I'm not sure Purdue and Marquette are real things. Though I'm not even sure those are real teams.
That's just straight up disrespect to our
just let Ryan Walters slap you
to
in
our
the
friends
face.
in Milwaukee. Shaka's got a really good club up there.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Shaka Smart's a good basketball coach everywhere except Texas.
He's a great basketball coach.
Yep.
There are guys like that. I mean, my parallels are all football. But there are some guys that just work better when they don't have to do – like, as great as Bill Snyder was, I'm not sure Bill Snyder's great at Texas. I'm not sure Bill Snyder's great at Alabama. Like, I think there are certain guys that have to kind of fit in a window. They have to be a certain type of guy. I have to recruit a certain type of player, a certain type of, support structure, all that kind of stuff. So that I don't find that crazy. And I remember him at let's see, not George Mason.
Come on, Josh.
VCU.
Yeah.
I knew it was.
Oh, you beat him in 2016? No, that was Will Wade, wasn't it? That was at VCU. That was before he took over after Shaka.
By the way,
speaking of a good man,
the perfect college basketball coach is Will Wade.
You know what I realized? Speaking of Will Wade, and it was in the preseason or not it was early game when Kentucky played Kansas. And you saw, they showed a photo of Bill Self and John Calipari standing together. And I thought to myself, in the future, there will never be villains like these two in college basketball. Because now you don't have to cheat. So, You'll never look at a Mike Krzyzewski. There'll never be another Mike Krzyzewski, another Bill Self, another John Calipari. Like, there are no more villains as coaches in college sports. Period.
Yeah, because if it's in the portal, it's gonna be Arkansas, it's gonna be Memphis, it's gonna be Texas Tech. But you don't look down at Musselman.
Eric Musselman's a little bit of a. I mean, he's not a villain, but I think he's a scumbag. But he's one of those scumbags. If you're an Arkansas fan, you love him. You love the guy.
Are you just instantly a scumbag anytime you take your shirt off as like a 50-year-old man?
You beat number one seeds. You can do it.
I don't know about he just he has a little bit of that me versus the world small man syndrome that I think everybody loves. If he's your coach, you love the guy. If you don't and you have to play against him, I think that there's this little bit of ire that you have against him.
But that's what makes sports great. It's just like Baker Mayfield. Everyone in Oklahoma loved Baker Mayfield.
Would die
and all
for
the
him.
stuff that he did that everybody else hated, you loved it even more.
100%. Same thing with, to a certain extent, Draymond Green in the NBA. If he was on your team, you love it.
Not if you're Jordan Poole.
I'm a Michigan State fan. I had no problem with Draymond Green when he was wearing green and white, but he can go to straight hell in the NBA. I got no time for him there. So that was a burning
even
of
his
the
own
bridge
coach
for me.
is like, enough.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
He's the
he's
bad
jumped the
example.
shark.
Like maybe I could see it be like Bill Laimbeer back in the day or something like that.
There used to be a long list of Texas guys like Chris Mims, Gabe Munecki, like those types of guys that, as an Oklahoma fan, you just hated.
Well, I mean, Missouri was the same way. They had
Eric Sutherland, Jason Sutherland,
and the Derek Grimm guy.
Yeah, you find those,
and then they thought of Eduardo Nara the same way that we thought of those guys.
Oh, sure. There was somebody. He's up at Kansas right now, or maybe he just left this past year. Christian Braun. Grady Dick.
Yeah.
Like, if he would have been 15 years ago and would have been able to play at Kansas for 3 years instead of the one and done, you would have grown to hate the guy.
Like Brock Cunningham at Texas.
Christian Leitner at Duke, those types of guys. Brock Cunningham's back for his 8th year at Texas.
Oh, my God. Really?
Is it shocking how many of the guys we're talking about are white guys? Why are the white guys so easy to hate?
Well, Gabe Munecki wasn't white.
That's true. No, but you're right.
All of them,
right.
But like Leitner, like Sutherland, Grimm, like you go down the list, a lot of those dudes are white guys. And JJ Redick, probably the most hated college basketball player ever.
Grayson Allen.
White guy.
Grayson Allen's a good one.
Grayson Allen. Yeah, that's a great one. So,
well, it's because they bring the lunch pail.
It's just because they're assholes. I mean, that's all it is. They're assholes.
But why are the white kids such the assholes? Like, why are they so predominantly shitheads?
That's their fuel, I guess.
Marcus Smart was like that.
Oh, yeah.
He's a brother.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
But now you can be a villain by being a flopper, though. Like, speaking of Marcus Smart. Now it's like, I want to be old man yelling at the clouds here, but now the villains aren't the guys that play really hard. They're the guys that play act. So anyway, it was a weird tangent. Okay, so Josh, thank you for getting someone on Twitter yelling at me about your diesel truck take with Grant Bricks, by the way.
Oh, God, somebody's yelling.
Wait, what?
Someone tagged Josh and I, and they're like, which one of you idiots said that truck wouldn't...
Did it mean anything?
The equipment truck?
Yes. Yeah, a Nebraska truck, yeah.
Now, to my credit, I jumped in front of it and was like, hey, that was
you took
me.
The bullet,
that was definitely not Carrie. So I don't know how that got confused.
And how are you angry at us because he picked Nebraska? No, but I mean, it's kind of what you said. I mean, and I looked at it kind of like the Jocelyn or the Jordy Ball thing. Like, if he doesn't want to go away from home, don't force him because he'll just end up in the portal.
Yeah, I think that's where OU got to. It was just like, okay, if you want to come, great. We're done pushing on this because there is a lot of parallel with he and Jordy Ball. Like, just you're going to fight, you're going to get it, you might even develop him, and the thing is, he's not a guy that's going to be ready to come in and play year one. So you're going to spend year one, year two developing him. And then if he, and again, I'm just drawing a direct line here between he and Ball. And then after year 2, he's about ready to go finally. And he's like, oh, I'm homesick. I'm going back to Nebraska. Well, shit. I mean, at least with Jordy, you got some amazing play out of her for 2 years before she decided to go back home. And I don't think anybody could have hard feelings towards her. She more than did her part. But a guy that's going to come and there's no way in year 1. Year 2, maybe. But year 1, there's no way he's going to be a role guy. And so you have to fight and claw and dig and waste that spot when it could have gone to somebody else. That's a tough pill to swallow.
What kind of decisions are still out there? I hate to say it's boring. That's a terrible way to phrase it, but
it's portal right now. Like, truly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Eddie Pierre-Louis, our guy Chad Simmons, had an update with him. Chad still likes where Oklahoma is on that. I'm shakier, I admit. Because I think it's kind of like Grant Bricks. It's like, do it or don't. You know, like we've chased and we've done what we can do. And I don't want, like, people are going to say, oh, OU's not out there recruiting. They are. I just think there's only so many times you can push the boulder up the hill before you finally just say, like, do whatever it's going to, you know, like, let it roll. It's going to go where it's going to go. So I think Oklahoma's just waiting. I mean, they're just kind of in I don't know that there's any real momentum right now for any school with him. I think it's just Eddie's got to make a choice. He's out there. They're still kind of eyeballing a couple of guys. I mean, we've talked about Tyler Mercer. I did not get woke up in time this morning, so I've got to get that out here after we're done. There will be some Tyler Mercer information in there, for all our listeners that have signed up here recently, be prepared for that. So there's not a lot. I mean, I definitely think we are pivoting towards portal. Like, between now and, let's say, mid-January, I would expect at most, and I mean at most, 2 recruiting commitments and probably 10 portal guys. I mean, like, it's going to be a very, very distinct advantage in one direction.
Do you have any interest just in terms of how they operate over the next, I guess it'd be 24 hours as coaches start going out for recruiting trips on Thursday, I believe?
Yeah, I
Josh
mean,
just hit a
there
bomb.
is. What's that?
Nothing.
nothing.
You're not going to find out until after this podcast.
Oh, God.
I just saw you coughing.
no,
I was worried.
Oh, yeah, it's the COVID. I'm in bad shape here. But no,
That's an admission that I was not ready for.
We went a different direction.
I thought that was a breathing apparatus that you were using.
Oh, no, that'd be way better. That'd make this real interesting. We could talk about something. Eddie, you do kind of have a dude jacket on. I know people can't see you today, but that's very
Well, in a couple hours.
Look. Yeah, I'll be wearing it on the basketball YouTube show today.
Okay, there we go. So everybody can look forward to that. But yeah, I mean,
just in terms of like who's going
there's
with
not
who,
a ton. Yeah,
and what schools they're hitting.
And I think it will tell. I think it will tell people a lot because they're not going to. I mean, they'll make stops at 2024 guys that are in the area, but this is largely going to be 2025 focused. Like, they are going to get out, start really focusing on those juniors. They're going to go by and see their commitments in that class. But I mean, like, so when they go see Kevin Sperry, when they go see Marcus James, Trinae Washington, obviously Xavier Robinson's going to be there. So, and even when it's less obvious than that, we're in the North Dallas area, we'll stop by and see this commitment, or we're over here, we'll check in on KJ Daniels while we're in Louisiana, kind of thing. So you're going to have some of that, but I think people are going to see. I mean, there's a reason that people are like, where are the 2024 recruiting notes? There's nothing really happening. Like, guys, I can't make up names. I mean, I could post a Got Yarborough if you wanted and kind of go for that, but there's not a lot of movement, and I don't think there's going to be, because what they need for 24 is some immediate help, and that's going to come from the portal. You're not going to find that guy in recruiting right now.
Josh, Dozie did decommit. Is this a numbers thing? Is this anything to do with Levy, or just weird timing?
I think it was absolutely to do with Levy. There's no question, because I had spoken to Dozie a few days before about something else entirely. And there was no hint. I mean, there was no sign that anything was wrong. Everything seemed on track. And I had talked to some sources at OU that made it sound like they were just set in 2024. They weren't really pursuing anybody. I think the Terry Bussey thing had kind of gone out the window, and they were just going to be set with where they were. It was kind of, we're happy where 2024 is. And I know some people say, oh, maybe he got processed because of the numbers. And I'm not going to say I'm going to rule that out, but I really don't think that's what it is. I think this is a guy that decided, okay, the OC's gone. I want to look around a little bit. I still think if OU wants to go in hard after Dozie Ezekama, I think they're going to be tough to beat for anybody because Emmett Jones is so clearly his best relationship in recruiting. But I think this was I don't think it was a processing thing because Dozie had a really nice senior year, put up some huge numbers, especially down the stretch. I think in his 2 playoff games, I want to say or maybe it was his last regular season game and first playoff game, he had like 400 yards receiving in like back-to-back games. Combined. So it's not like he had a poor year or anything like that. So I would guess he ends up probably back in the class, but we'll see. Again, with a big receiver class like that and knowing what's there in the portal, you're not going to get, if you lose that guy, okay, you can. I mean, I like Dozie, he's a good player, but he's a guy that you can find a replacement for. I mean, it's not like you're losing Danny Okoye or David Stone or somebody that's just a body that you're not going to be able to replicate.
I'd almost say you're better off if you're Oklahoma to get receivers out of the portal because they need more experience than youth right now, and especially depending on what happens to Jalil Farouk.
Yeah, and there's some truth in that, but at the same time, you've got to be careful of bringing those guys in and not letting a Jaquez Petaway really develop.
Sure.
Are you stunting him and that kind of stuff? That guys that have more upside than most anybody you're going to find in the portal. But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. Like you could use a guy that I don't know is Andrell Anthony. I mean, obviously you'd take an Andrell Anthony if you could find him, but also more than a Bunkley Shelton or a J.J. Hester that's really not giving you much of anything.
Would you guys go after, and just in terms of portal, I know we talked about a couple different positions. Do you think OU will be active in the quarterback transfer portal? And just with that said, how tough of a sell is that if you're looking to get somebody? Because I don't know. I mean, do you necessarily want, and who knows what happens with the current guys on roster, talking about Davis Bevel and General Booty, if they're looking to get out and go actually get on the field somewhere, insert your joke out there. I'm sure somebody's saying it.
I'd be more worried about Booty transferring to like a big media market. I mean,
to get more NIL.
Yeah.
Hey, smart on him.
Call shirts.
Smart on him. I just think that like with Jackson obviously coming back to be the quarterback, you have Michael Hawkins coming in. Do you want your backup to be a true freshman? And we've seen, like, over the last couple of years, we've seen what happens when the starting quarterback takes a bad hit.
Can I take this real quick?
I think you have to. I won't take up any more time than that. I think you have to go get an experienced quarterback.
It just seems like that's a really, really tough sell.
I mean, how are you going to do? I mean, you've got Will Howard in the trend. Since we started podcasting, Coastal Carolina quarterback Grayson McCall is in the transfer portal.
But
now.
those guys aren't going to come and be a backup to Jackson,
right? But I mean, who's worth a shit that's going to be in the transfer portal that's a backup?
You're going to get Davis Bevel again. It's not. Yeah. I'm not telling you you're going to get anybody that makes an impact.
There's an overflood of quarterbacks that are quality quarterbacks in the portal. I mean, everybody's out there trying to get their Sam Hartman
find their
deal.
Spencer Sanders is what they need.
Yeah,
somebody that can come in and be like, I don't care about playing, but if you need me to come in and take a snap, I can.
We need a poor decision maker to be our backup quarterback.
Did this portal quarterback guy, has he been arrested before? If he has, I'm interested.
So, I mean, but to me, it's
guys,
like...
I think a guy like Sanders would be perfect.
That's what we're saying.
You could do something with, you could make use of him. But yeah, I mean, if you don't want him to be your guy, but like, okay, we need you for 2 quarters, Spencer. Go make some plays with your feet. Let's get creative. Let's do something a little off the wall.
Somehow Lane Kiffin pulled that off.
Somehow Jackson Dart still played after that hit.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I still can't believe that Spencer Sanders ended up going to Ole Miss where he literally just didn't play.
The NCAA should have stepped in halfway through the season and said, look, Spencer, we know this is a bad decision that you made. There's all these teams that really need a quarterback.
He'd open his
we'll
phone
let
up
you
to
go
Chase
to one
and
of
be like,
those.
yeah, you sure? You sure this was a bad decision with all the NIL money I'm sure he got?
But, I mean, Kansas State's basically telling Will Howard, we like our younger guy. You need to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing happened to Mordecai at SMU. I mean, like, you not only have quarterbacks that seemingly, like the Michigan State guy left, who was a starter. And
what about a Blake
left.
Shapen? Where does he end up in the grand scheme of things? Would he be a guy that would sign up to be a backup?
I don't think so.
Probably not.
I think he's had the taste of starting, and he's losing his offensive coordinator. He probably wants to go somewhere where, I don't know if he's going to follow Jeff Grimes somewhere. And by the way, can I just say this? Everybody's getting on Gabe so much and shit on us a little bit because we brought up Jeff Grimes as a potential offensive coordinator. Jeff Grimes he's a really good offensive coordinator. I would still take Jeff. I think, Josh, you got a lot of crap for saying it too. Like,
I couldn't give a shit. Jeff Grimes is really good.
He's
like,
really good. And if you know anything about football and you watch his offense and what they do and the formations and the sets they're running, I mean, he's just as good as Kansas's offensive coordinator, if not maybe better.
I like what he does.
I like
a little
Andy
better.
Koldnicki really good.
I'm just saying you can win a national championship with Jeff Grimes as your offense. I believe.
Yeah,
if you have the right talent.
Now, you do want exactly, and that's the question that I think is valid. Like, is Jeff Grimes good enough as a recruiter?
Yeah, he seems like a really boring guy.
Elite guys.
Yeah.
So that's fair. Like I can hear that question, and you could kind of see. But again, recruiting to Baylor and recruiting to Oklahoma are not the same thing. Like, especially trying to land elite quarterbacks. Like, if you've got a guy that has any competency and can say, look what my offenses do. We score a ton of points. We're going to support you with the run game. You're going to throw 30 times a game, and it's going to be all good. There's not going to be a lot of quarterbacks that are not going to be interested in playing football at Oklahoma.
You know what's interesting is with all the talk about Aranda getting rid of staff and needing to commit to NIL, before NIL was a thing, if I remember correctly, Baylor kind of stole Jarrett Stidham away from Texas Tech with some shady activities.
Yeah.
So how are they not good at NIL when they were good at it before it was legal? That's my question.
You get that with a lot of these schools, Kerry. Like, look at guys. I mean, a very topical one is Mississippi State. Like, everybody's like, "Oh, I don't," and that's been one of the interesting storylines because all I heard, kind of before things really heated up with Levy, was Mississippi State's NIL stuff is not good, and then all of a sudden, like, as Levy comes in, and I'm not saying it's got anything to do with Levy, but it was like, oh no, Zach Selman's kind of set that in order, and it's different now, and those kind of things. I'm like, okay, like it's just two very conflicting stories. But go back to Jackie Sherrill. Jackie Sherrill at Mississippi State, they weren't afraid of nothing. There were people doing work down there. But I think what it is, Kerry, it's a different bracket. Like, used to be, let's say,
$70,000 or something would get.
$120,000 was going to land you Leonard Fournette. That's not going to do it anymore.
Yeah,
so,
now you got to be in the millions.
It's a different tax bracket. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's not the guy who owns 3 car dealerships that can help you out. Now it's got to be a dude who runs a legitimate big time company. That's got to be the kind of guy footing your bill.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, Baylor, they used to be able to do whatever they wanted.
I mean, there's a lot of people that wanted Dave Aranda to get fired this year.
I know.
Which kind of surprises me, but that might have been maybe one of the biggest surprises in college football, just how quickly that dropped off. And I know I say it every week, but the disparity in speed between Texas State, who was good offensively, and Baylor that first week of the season or second week of the season was just, I have nothing else to say. It was shocking.
Basically, football cheating used to be Buddy Garrity, and now it's like Mark Cuban.
Yeah,
your Friday night lights.
That's a good statement.
Yeah, that really is. Guys, I mean, with Baylor, is it me or we were talking about Blake Shapen earlier? Almost the second Aranda made that decision to go with Shapen and let was it Gary or Jerry? I could never remember. Bohannon, when he got left to the transfer portal, almost from that minute forward, Baylor fell apart.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And he was doing the right thing by actually naming it early so he didn't string along someone. And it did not work out.
And it's probably also worth mentioning Jerry Bohannon back in the transfer portal from South Florida.
There's a lot of that this year. You guys notice that? Like, I feel like there's a lot of names that like went out to see what was out there, and now they're back in the portal again. There's something happening here. Something. Carrie and Eddie have got something cook.
We're having some crackling audio
I got some
issues.
static.
Oh. So,
okay.
But no, I mean, like, I get the Bohannon thing. It's just like it didn't work out, and he has one more chance to transfer, then that's it for everybody.
Yeah.
That's been multiple transfers. I mean, because now you got to pick your spot. It's got to be the right
one
spot.
chance.
Yeah. So, sorry, we were still having kind of some weird audio issues. All right. Well, other than that, recruiting wise, anything that we really need to get into? I mean, obviously, signing day coming up December 20th. But I think you said it all. It really is going to be more about portal than it is high school kids.
And I do think here over the next
2 weeks.
7 days to whatever, Oklahoma's like, if you're an Oklahoma fan, think that they're gonna just completely skate away from this without having any guys go in the portal. You're fooling yourself. It's gonna happen, and it'll be interesting to. Well, I'm sure instant reactions and stuff if it's somebody worthwhile that we'll come on and talk about.
Hey, I was going to ask you guys because I didn't. My whole situation was crazy last week with the game and trying to travel up to catch the high school game that night. So I missed some of the conversation that you all were having. Did Marcus Major go through senior stuff last week?
Yes.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah. He can still technically come back, but yes.
Yep. He's got a COVID year. Yep. That's absolutely
there are
right.
so many of those guys, like the DJ Terry, Jacob Lade, like all these guys.
I feel like they're kind of divided in between guys
day.
like a Marcus Major that I would be kind of bold away shocked if he came back, and then somebody like a DJ Terry that I would imagine Brent Venables is putting a full court press on, saying you could be the key component in this defensive line. We need you to come back.
Yeah.
Well, guys, think about the middle of your defense. If it's Jacob Lacey, DeJohn Terry, Danny Stutzman, and Billy Bowman up the middle, that's a pretty strong spine of your defense that all could all leave or could all come back.
Yep.
Well, and you have that selling point. Like, look, you go and succeed in the SEC, your draft stock you can't be screwed with. Like, if you play well in the SEC, NFL teams are going to have very few questions.
How much do you think that goes into kind of the pitch or whatever that Brent Venables will present to a Danny Stutzman or a Billy Bowman or a DJ Terry in saying, not only are you coming back, but you're going to put it on tape against the SEC?
I got to think it's a big
part. Is that like the biggest selling point that you would have?
Harry's interesting though, guys, because he's played in the SEC.
True.
How and now you can say that was 2 years ago. You've developed. Like, look, now you can show where you are as a senior. I mean, like, so that's because guys, I don't think I was on. I think I was listening to something that Eddie and George were talking about, but I couldn't agree more. I think as the year went on, there's a very good case that Terry was Oklahoma's best defensive lineman.
Yes, I would agree with that.
All right. Well, I think we got to let Bob and Eddie get out of here for basketball. So
to McCaslin Fieldhouse.
I'm excited.
We're going.
It's gonna be cool
tomorrow.
All students tomorrow night.
All students.
Do the media get to go?
Yeah.
I don't know where we're sitting yet.
I mean, that hasn't been communicated, but that's nothing new.
Well, we can
it's not just
back in
fans,
school.
Or not just students, George or Bob. I've heard a lot of different conversation. Just want to clarify.
I don't know when I'll ask this to Porter, but a lot of times when OU's had a home game, the Thunder have had a home game. The Lakers are in town, right? Tomorrow night.
Oh,
yeah, they are.
It just feels he cannot catch a break with.
Yeah, but I don't think a bunch of the students are going up to the Lakers game. I think it's going to be packed.
Well, yeah, because
it should be, especially with the way it started. It's been tremendous that they went 6-0.
I think it's going to be really, really cool. It kind of reminds me of like that game that you would go play in like middle school or something, and the entire school would get out for like a holiday tournament, and you would go and play. But I'm excited about it. It's gonna be fun.
I remember watching Buddy Hield over there when they played a game back in the day.
Yep.
It was a preseason game, right? It was an exhibition game against Oklahoma Christian.
Mm-hmm.
It was. In fact, I want to say, was that Lon's first year? Was that like the first game?
I think it was, yeah.
I can't remember. I know that they had Lon's introductory press conference at McCaslin.
Right.
All right, well, that's coming up, and you
book
can't
the Final
go
Four
unless
tickets,
you're
please.
enrolled at OU. So that's going to do it for us. We'll be back again next week. Not this week because OU's not playing in the championship game. By the way, who's everybody taking? Texas big in that?
I think Texas wins. I don't know about big. I think Oklahoma State just has this way of just making things completely disgusting.
Yep.
and
I'd say
credit,
ugly,
that's like that is
disgusting. There
a
you go.
compliment.
Yep.
I just think Texas is
there's a
too
mismatch.
talented. Yeah.
George,
Gundy's a better
Texas
coach.
by 3 touchdowns. Just take the opposite of whatever Eddie's gambling on.
that's incredibly
Came
insane.
in here with one last shot in the
That's
chamber.
incredibly insane. I hope you get arrested.
Didn't you like OSU to cover the 16.5 last week against BYU?
No, I took BYU.
I don't.
No,
it
remember,
was
first half.
it was
first half.
No, that was Texas Tech against Texas.
Did that cover?
No, they lost by 52.
Wow.
They lost
I
by
was
52.
listening to that while driving home
We
from
need to
Dallas,
just-
and like I knew the outcome, and I was like, "Oh God, he's gonna hate these days."
Problem is, I get angry because I back Eddie sometimes, and so I ended up losing too.
That's right, and you should still follow me. I'm doing better than the Fat Jack, guaranteed. Guaranteed.
So you got a tout service coming up next? Are you sponsoring the pod?
It's not legal in the
Is
state
the
of
Eddie
Oklahoma.
Tout service sponsoring the pod soon?
Should be.
Because I'll talk shit on Fat Jack all you want if you'll.
I'm not talking shit on him. I just guarantee you that I have a better record. I've had a really good year.
He's a fine Heritage Hall parent.
He's a good guy. He's
Yeah.
a good guy. And good luck to the Chargers this weekend.
All right, that is going to do it. George, any more shots to fire before we get out of here? No, he just waved. Thanks,
George
everybody.
has a problem speeding. He came by me on Flood today, and I nearly lost my coffee.
All right, that you stole from KFOR. All right, that's going to do it. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 Podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com.